All right, welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We all know Taylor Swift. She's obviously like a huge musical icon. But
Yeah.
what we're going to talk about today
Right.
is something a little bit more than just her music. We want to really kind of like dissect and analyze the core elements that have fueled her insane climb to the top, and then also what's kept her there for so long.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, she's had like record-breaking longevity, and it really makes you wonder what she's doing differently.
Right, and what can we all learn from it?
Exactly. So we've done a lot of research, gone through articles, interviews, documentaries. We've pulled out what we think are the most crucial insights.
Right.
And those run the gamut from, like you were saying, her early days and her ambition, all the way to, some of her genius business moves and how she's managed to reinvent herself over and over again.
Yes. And so today, think of this as like your cheat sheet to understanding the strategy behind all the headlines.
Exactly. I think we all want to leave here today really understanding what makes her journey so unique and what parts of it we can maybe apply to our own lives.
Totally. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. December 13th, 1989, in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Reading, Pennsylvania. Like, not exactly a hotbed of country music. But that's where it all began for Taylor Allison Swift.
Yeah. And obviously she had this like early passion for country music, and a lot of that came from being inspired by artists like Shania Twain.
Right, Shania Twain and Faith Hill.
Faith Hill, yep. So she was clearly a fan. But
yeah, she was a huge fan.
But this wasn't just like passive admiration, was it? Like she was
No.
doing something.
What really stands out to me, especially in those early accounts, is how proactive she was.
Yeah.
She wasn't just listening to these artists, she was out there performing.
She's doing
at local events.
Local events, yeah.
Fairs, talent shows. I mean, basically any place that would have her.
Right, and that's like...
It was clearly about getting that real world experience, even as a kid.
At such a young age.
Yeah.
And then she really, I guess, kicked things up a notch when she started taking those trips to Nashville with her demo tapes.
Yeah.
At just 11 years old? I mean, can you imagine?
11 years old.
Just facing that, like, industry machine.
It's like the heart of country music, right?
I know.
And all those likely rejections.
Oh, totally.
I think that would crush most people.
Yeah.
But for her, it almost seems like it became this, like, proving ground.
Totally. It's like she kind of viewed those early no's not as these setbacks, but as, like, valuable feeling.
Like fuel.
Yeah.
To get better, to refine her songwriting, her performance.
To hone that craft.
Yeah, and that just speaks volumes about her, her internal motivation.
Right. And then, big things happen when she's 14 and her family decides to move to Nashville.
I think that's like a pivotal moment. That's not just a casual decision. You're uprooting your whole family, moving to a new city, and it really signals a deep level of commitment and belief.
Yeah.
Not just from Taylor, but from her whole family.
Yeah. So, I mean, how critical was that support system for her, in those early years?
I mean, based on everything we've read, the sources all point to this profound impact that her family had. It wasn't just emotional support, but, like real tangible investment in her dream.
Yes.
It was providing her with the environment, with the resources that she needed at this really crucial time.
Yes. And I mean, obviously it paid off, right? At 15, she gets signed with Big Machine Records, which leads to her self-titled debut album in 2006.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the hit single, Tim McGraw, and then boom, the album goes multi-platinum. I mean, it was huge success.
Yeah, huge success.
So, like, looking back at those initial steps, what would you say are, like, the core principles that really jump out at you?
Well, first of all, I think just the sheer tenacity. I mean, so many people face rejection early on and give up, but she just refused to be discouraged.
Right.
That's a huge lesson for all of us. And then the second thing is just how much she actively cultivated her craft.
Okay.
She wasn't just sitting around waiting for success to find her.
Right. She was working.
She's working. Yeah, constantly improving her skills. And then finally, that family support, that foundation, it's so critical. It really underscores how early success is often nurtured by a strong support system. I mean, think about it in your own life.
Yeah.
How has your support network or lack thereof impacted your journey?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move into a phase now where we see another skill set of hers come into play, and that is her incredible capacity for reinvention.
Oh, yeah. I love this part of her story.
Yeah. It's almost like watching a performer who has multiple acts.
Yeah.
Each one distinct.
Totally.
Each one successful.
Yeah, and it's that ability to evolve,
Yeah.
you know, to shed one skin and embrace another. I think that is a huge reason why she's remained relevant for so long.
Yeah.
You know, because in any industry, especially something as fast-moving as music stagnation, it can be, like, deadly.
Yes. Okay. So let's start with what we can call, like, the country princess era. This was roughly 2006 to 2012.
Yeah.
We had albums like the self-titled one, Fearless, Speak Now, and Red. Those really cemented her status as like this country pop superstar. And of course, let's not forget Fearless, which got her that first Album of the Year Grammy
At 20.
at 20 years old.
Unbelievable.
I know. So what did this initial phase really do for her? Like, what did it establish?
Well, I think this is when she built that intensely loyal fan base.
Okay.
And she did that through this, like, really relatable storytelling. It was all about teenage romance, friendship, the ups and downs of growing up.
Yeah.
And all of that was set to these, like, incredibly catchy melodies. And so it just resonated with a huge audience. And then on top of that, you have that Grammy win.
Yeah.
It was like massive industry validation.
At such a young age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then comes what feels like a really big shift
Yeah.
to the pop queen era. This is around 2014 to 2019, and it really was marked by the album 1989.
Huge album.
I know.
I mean, Shake It Off, Blank Space.
I mean, I still hear those songs today.
Oh, yeah.
It was everywhere.
Everywhere. Global hits.
So it was more than just a change in sound, right? It felt like a
Oh, yeah. It was way more.
total brand overhaul.
Right. So you think about the music, but then you think about, like, the visuals. It became so much more polished, this high fashion aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was just a random style choice, you know? It was very deliberate. It broadened her appeal. It positioned her for, like, global superstardom, you know? It was aligning her brand with some of those other massive pop icons. And then we have to talk about the social media. It became so much more curated.
Yes. She was telling this news story targeted at a much wider audience.
Yeah. And then, just everyone thought, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
They've got her pegged.
She does it again.
She changes it up.
Yep.
And we get the Indian artistic era. This was like 2020 onwards and was marked by albums like Folklore and Evermore.
Right.
And this was a totally different sound. It was more introspective, had those indie folk vibes. And of course, Folklore earned her another Album of the Year Grammy.
Yeah.
So what do you think that shift communicated?
Well, to me, what was so fascinating about this was just how willing she was to challenge people's expectations.
Yeah.
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 It's like she was showing us that she wasn't afraid to explore different sonic landscapes.
Yeah.
And it demonstrated this, like, real confidence in her songwriting that, it wasn't tied to just one genre. And it resonated with a whole different group of listeners, too.
Right. So when we look at these, like, distinct periods of reinvention that she went through.
What do you think are the takeaways for someone who is listening and trying to, stay relevant?
Stay relevant.
Stay on top of their game in their own field.
Well, the first thing is that adaptability is critical. I mean, the world around us, it's constantly changing.
Yes.
Right? So we have to be able to evolve with it. And then second, I think it really shows the importance of taking risks, but calculated risks. Her genre transitions, they weren't random. They were strategic. They were thought out.
Right.
And then finally, it's about staying true to your core while exploring new avenues. Her storytelling always remained central, even as her music style was changing.
Okay, let's shift gears now and talk about the brains behind the music.
Okay.
Because, Taylor Swift is not just creating art. She's also a really savvy businesswoman.
Oh, yeah.
And her marketing and business acumen are just as impressive as her music, I would say.
I completely agree. She's a prime example of an artist who understands that her career, it's not just about the music, it's about the business decisions too.
Right. Okay, so strategy number one, social media and fan engagement. Unlike a lot of artists at her level, she maintains a very direct line of communication with her fans.
Oh, she's known for that.
Yeah, she's always commenting, engaging, even sending personal gifts.
Yeah.
So how does that level of interaction really contribute to her success?
Well, it creates this incredibly strong sense of connection and loyalty within her fan base. She's making people feel seen, feel valued, and so they become this really powerful community that supports her work, that defends her brand.
Yeah, it's like she's built relationships.
Yeah.
Not just, like, transactions.
Exactly.
Okay. So strategy number two, turning controversies into opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
So, the 2016 situation with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian really comes to mind.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah. And her response with the Reputation album and that whole, the old Taylor line, that became like this cultural phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was genius, really.
What do you think that showed us about, like, her strategic abilities?
That, to me, was a masterclass in controlling your own narrative. She didn't let herself be silenced or defined by that controversy.
Right.
Instead, she took it and she flipped it.
Yeah.
She turned it into fuel for a new creative era.
Yeah.
And it really showed her ability to take something negative and turn it into a powerful comeback.
And capture the attention of everyone while she was doing it.
Exactly.
Okay. Strategy number 3,
Uh,
owning her music. So this was a big one. The sale of her master recordings, and then her decision to re-record her entire back catalog is, Taylor's version.
Yep. Bold move.
Unprecedented.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever really seen anything like it.
I know. So what are, like, the biggest implications of that strategy?
I think, first of all, it's a huge statement about artists owning their work.
Right.
And having control over their legacy.
Yes.
And then second, it was a really smart business decision. It gave fans an incentive to listen to her new versions of the songs, which actually decreased the value of those original recordings.
Right. It almost like forced her old label's hand.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now you need these because everyone's listening to these.
And I think most importantly, it set a precedent for the whole music industry.
Yes.
It made other artists think about their rights and options.
Yes. So, if we kind of zoom out and look at these 3 big strategies, what are the big overarching business principles that we can learn from Taylor Swift?
Well, first of all, that brand ownership is key.
Okay.
You have to control your own narrative.
Yeah.
Second is that you can use challenges, you can use controversies as opportunities for growth.
Okay.
And then finally, building that direct connection with your audience, it's so valuable.
Yeah. It's a theme we keep coming back to.
Yeah.
So it's pretty obvious that her path to success hasn't been a straight line.
Not at all.
Yeah.
She's faced a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah.
She's had professional obstacles.
Early rejections, being underestimated as a songwriter, intense media attention on her personal life, industry disputes.
Yeah, you name it.
The battle for her music, right?
She's been through it.
So I think what's really instructive isn't those challenges themselves,
Right.
but how she responded to them.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't seem to be defined by them.
No.
She's always strategizing, adapting. She's incredibly resilient.
Yeah. And that's what I think is so inspiring, that proactive approach where she's focusing on finding solutions.
Right.
Instead of just dwelling on the setbacks. That's what leads to long-term success. It's about maintaining momentum, even when things get tough.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because if you look at it, some of her most, I think, compelling, critically acclaimed work came after those periods of struggle.
Yeah.
So it's almost like those experiences, they fueled her creativity.
Yeah, and that's something we see with a lot of artists, that those intense personal experiences, whether they're positive or negative, they provide a lot of emotional material, which then allows them to create work that really connects with people.
Yeah, it's like they're tapping into this universal truth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for you listening, when you look at her ability to navigate these difficult times, what are like the key lessons you would say that we can all learn from?
Okay, well, first of all, I think you have to accept that obstacles are going to be a part of pretty much any ambitious endeavor.
Okay.
Right? They're going to happen. So expect that. And second, you have to maintain a long-term perspective. Try not to let those short-term setbacks dictate the ultimate outcome. And then finally, I think, it's about being creative and strategic about channeling those difficulties into something productive.
Yeah. This has been a really interesting look into Taylor Swift's career.
It has.
But let's get practical now. How can our listeners, how can you apply what we've learned to your own lives, to your own aspirations?
Right. Taylor Swift's journey, it offers us a really valuable case study for achieving and maintaining success, not just in music, but in any field.
Okay, so principle number 1, find your unique talent. For Taylor, it was that songwriting, that storytelling ability that she had from a very young age. So for you, what is that innate strength? What's that passion that you possess?
Yeah, I think it's really important to spend some time identifying what those core competencies are and then really focus on developing them.
Yeah, ask yourself, what comes naturally to me? What do I find genuinely engaging?
Yeah, those are great questions.
Okay, so principle number 2, master your craft.
Yeah.
So we know that Taylor really dedicated herself to honing her songwriting, her performance skills. She did it relentlessly, consistently. So in your life, what is that one area that requires that same level of commitment to getting better?
I think a lot of times the thing that separates people who achieve their goals
Yeah,
from those who don't is the consistent effort, the dedication to lifelong learning.
right. Okay. Principle number 3, take smart risks. When she transitioned from genre to genre, those weren't impulsive decisions. So where in your life could you take a risk, a calculated risk, that could lead to significant growth?
I think that's about, really honestly evaluating the potential rewards,
Yeah.
the potential downsides, and then making informed decisions. Don't let yourself stay stuck in a comfort zone.
Right. Principle number 4, build a personal brand.
Right here.
So Taylor has cultivated this image, this connection with her audience that goes way beyond her music.
Oh yeah, she's an icon.
So think about how you are shaping your reputation, how you're communicating the value that you offer.
Your personal brand, it's basically the perception that other people have of you.
Yeah.
And so you want to be intentional about how you're cultivating that. It can make a big difference in the opportunities that come your way.
Totally. Okay, and then principle number 5, this is a big one. Never give up. So as we've discussed, her journey has been full of setbacks, yet she has consistently come back even stronger. So how can you foster that same resilience in your own life?
The ability to persevere through difficult times, to learn from your mistakes, and to maintain that belief in your vision.
Right.
That is what ultimately leads to success.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the strategies behind Taylor Swift's incredible career, it's clear that her success is not an accident. It's not just talent.
Yeah.
It's strategic thinking, dedication,
Yeah, she puts in the work.
adaptability, a deep understanding of her audience. It's multifaceted, and it's a lesson that goes way beyond music.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen how she's constantly reinventing herself, making smart business moves, turning challenges into opportunities, and just connecting with her fans on this really deep level. It's all had a huge impact.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Looking at everything we've talked about today, which of her strategies really speaks to you right now?
Yeah.
What is that one step that you can take this week
This week,
to start implementing it in your own life, in your own work? Think about the many layers of success and how you can shape your own path. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.